The international worldwisdomwell.com brings you this carefully curated rare audiobook, Brain versus Mind. Chapter 1. Defining Brain and Mind. The terms brain and mind have captivated human curiosity for centuries, representing distinct yet intertwined aspects of our existence. The brain, a marvel of biological engineering, serves as the physical substrate for mental processes. It comprises billions of neurons interconnected through complex neural networks, facilitating communication and information processing. From regulating basic bodily functions like breathing and heartbeat to enabling complex cognitive functions such as language and decision-making, the brain is the seat of biological intelligence. On the other hand, the mind encompasses the intangible realm of thoughts, emotions, perceptions, and consciousness. It is the subjective experience of being, the inner world where thoughts form, emotions arise, and self-awareness resides. Unlike the brain, which can be studied through neuroscientific methods like brain imaging and electrophysiology, the mind eludes direct observation and measurement. Instead, it reveals itself through introspection, self-reporting, and behavioral manifestations. Philosophically, the distinction between the brain and the mind has sparked debates ranging from dualism, positing a separate mental realm, to monism, asserting a unity of mind and body. Dualist perspectives, championed by thinkers like René Descartes, propose that the mind and body are distinct entities, with the mind having a non-physical, immaterial nature. In contrast, monist views, such as materialism and idealism, contend that mental phenomena emerge from physical processes, whether neural activity in the brain or abstract conceptual frameworks. Neuroscientific advancements have deepened our understanding of the brain-mind relationship, revealing correlations between brain states and mental states. For example, studies using functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, have identified brain regions associated with specific mental functions, such as the prefrontal cortex role in executive control or the amygdala's involvement in emotional processing. These findings underscore the intricate interplay between neural activity and subjective experiences, bridging the gap between the physical and abstract domains. In essence, the brain represents the biological foundation of cognition and behavior, while the mind embodies consciousness and mental life. Their interdependence highlights the complexity of human nature, where neural mechanisms give rise to subjective realities, shaping our perceptions, beliefs, and identities. Understanding the differences and connections between the brain and the mind is fundamental to unraveling the mysteries of consciousness and unlocking the full potential of the human experience. Chapter 2. Physical nature of the brain. The brain's physical nature is a testament to evolutionary ingenuity, comprising intricate structures that orchestrate a vast array of physiological and cognitive functions. At the macroscopic level, the brain can be divided into distinct regions, each specializing in different tasks. The cerebrum, with its convoluted surface, the cerebral cortex, houses sensory processing areas, motor control regions, and higher-order cognitive centers responsible for reasoning, language, and problem-solving. Beneath the cerebrum, the cerebellum coordinates motor movements and balance, while the brainstem regulates essential functions like breathing, heart rate, and consciousness. Neuroanatomy reveals the brain's cellular composition, primarily consisting of neurons and glial cells. Neurons are the functional units responsible for information processing, using electrical impulses and chemical signals to transmit messages within neural circuits. Glial cells provide support, nourishment, and insulation to neurons, contributing to neural connectivity and overall brain health. Neurophysiology delves into the mechanisms underlying brain activity, from synaptic transmission to network dynamics. Synapses, the junctions between neurons, facilitate communication through neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and glutamate. This synaptic transmission forms the basis of neuronal signaling, enabling rapid information processing and synaptic plasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and reorganize in response to experience. Modern neuroscience techniques such as electroencephalography, EEG, magnetoencephalography, MEG, and functional MRI, fMRI, allow researchers to observe brain activity in real time. These tools reveal the dynamic interplay of brain regions during cognitive tasks, emotional experiences, and sensory processing. For instance, fMRI studies have mapped the default mode network, a network of brain regions active during rest and self-referential thinking, shedding light on introspective processes. The brain's physicality extends to its role in consciousness and subjective experiences. While neural correlates of consciousness are being explored, the nature of subjective awareness remains a philosophical and scientific puzzle. The brain's capacity to generate self-awareness, subjective feelings, and conscious perceptions highlights the complexity of neural computations underlying consciousness. In summary, the brain's physical nature encompasses its anatomical, cellular, and functional aspects, showcasing the biological marvel that underpins human cognition and behavior. Understanding the brain's physicality is essential for deciphering neurological disorders, designing brain-computer interfaces, and advancing neurotechnologies that enhance human well-being and cognitive abilities. Chapter 3: Abstract Nature of the Mind. The abstract nature of the mind transcends the tangible confines of the brain, encompassing a realm of subjective experiences, consciousness, and mental phenomena. Unlike the brain's physicality, which can be studied through empirical methods, the mind eludes direct observation and measurement, posing challenges and opportunities for philosophical inquiry and psychological exploration. At its core, the mind represents the totality of cognitive processes, emotions, perceptions, beliefs, memories, and consciousness. It is the seat of subjective experience, where thoughts arise, emotions unfold, and self-awareness emerges. The mind's abstract nature becomes apparent in phenomena such as introspection, imagination, creativity, and self-reflection, which defies straightforward neurobiological explanations. Philosophically, the mind has been a subject of fascination and debate, leading to various theories and perspectives. Dualist views, championed by thinkers like Descartes, posit the mind as a non-physical, immaterial entity distinct from the brain or body. In contrast, monist frameworks, such as materialism and functionalism, argue that mental phenomena emerge from physical processes, whether neural activity or computational algorithms. The concept of consciousness lies at the heart of the mind's abstract nature. Conscious experiences, including self-awareness, perception, attention, and introspection, defy reductionist explanations solely based on brain activity. The hard problem of consciousness, articulated by philosopher David Chalmers, highlights the challenge of bridging subjective experiences with objective neurobiological processes. Emotions, another facet of the mind, embody the subjective quality of affective states, from joy and love to fear and sadness. While neuroscientists have identified brain regions involved in emotional processing, such as the amygdala and insula, the richness and complexity of emotional experiences exceed mere neural activations involving cognitive appraisal, social context, and personal significance. Perception, cognition, and memory also showcase the mind's abstract nature. Perceptual experiences, shaped by sensory inputs and cognitive interpretations, create our subjective reality of the external world. Cognitive processes like reasoning, problem-solving, and decision-making involve higher-order mental functions that integrate information, evaluate options, and generate adaptive responses. Imagination and creativity further illuminate the mind's abstract capabilities. Imagination allows us to mentally simulate hypothetical scenarios, envision possibilities, and engage in symbolic thinking. Creativity manifests in novel ideas, artistic expressions, scientific discoveries, and innovative problem-solving, reflecting the mind's generative and exploratory nature. In summary, the mind's abstract nature encompasses a rich tapestry of cognitive, emotional, perceptual, and imaginative processes that define human consciousness and mental life. While rooted in neurobiology, the mind's complexity extends beyond neuronal firings, inviting interdisciplinary inquiries into philosophy, psychology, cognitive science, and consciousness studies. Chapter 4. Neurological processes. Neurological processes are the cornerstone of brain function, encompassing a myriad of intricate mechanisms that underpin cognition, behavior, and sensory processing. At the cellular level, neurons are the fundamental units responsible for transmitting information through electrical impulses and chemical signals. Synaptic transmission, facilitated by neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine, enables communication between neurons and forms the basis of neural circuits. Neural networks are complex assemblies of interconnected neurons that process information and perform specific functions. For example, visual processing involves neural pathways from the retina to the visual cortex, where sensory inputs are transformed into perceptual representations. Motor control relies on motor neurons and the coordination of muscle contractions mediated by the cerebellum and motor cortex. Neuroplasticity is the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself in response to experience, learning, and environmental stimuli. Synaptic plasticity, including long-term potentiation, LTP, and long-term depression, LTD, underlies memory formation and synaptic strengthening. Structural plasticity involves changes in neural connections, dendritic branching, and neurogenesis, contributing to adaptive changes in brain circuitry. Neurochemical processes play a crucial role in modulating brain activity and neurotransmitter balance. Imbalances in neurotransmitters such as dopamine in reward pathways or serotonin in mood regulation are implicated in neurological disorders like Parkinson's disease, depression, and schizophrenia. Psychopharmacology targets these neurotransmitter systems to treat symptoms and restore neural functioning. Neurodevelopmental processes shape the brain's structure and connectivity from infancy through adulthood. Early brain development involves processes like synaptogenesis, myelination, and pruning, laying the foundation for cognitive and emotional development. Experience-dependent plasticity, driven by environmental stimuli and social interactions, refines neural circuits and shapes individual differences in behavior and cognition. In summary, neurological processes encompass a spectrum of cellular, synaptic, network, and neurochemical mechanisms that govern brain function and adaptation. Understanding these processes is essential for elucidating brain behavior relationships, developing interventions for neurological disorders, and advancing neuroscientific research. Chapter 5. Cognitive Functions. Cognitive functions encompass a diverse array of mental processes that enable us to perceive, think, learn, remember, and make decisions. These functions arise from neural activity and interactions across distributed brain networks, highlighting the brain's complexity and versatility in information processing. Perception is the process of organizing and interpreting sensory information to create meaningful representations of the external world. Sensory systems, such as vision, hearing, touch, taste, and smell, transmit sensory inputs to the brain for processing. Perceptual illusions, such as optical illusions or auditory illusions, reveal the brain's role in interpreting sensory data and constructing perceptual experiences. Attention is the cognitive ability to focus mental resources on specific stimuli or tasks while filtering out irrelevant information. Attentional mechanisms involve brain regions like the prefrontal cortex, parietal lobes, and thalamus, coordinating selective attention, sustained attention, and divided attention. Attentional deficits are observed in disorders like attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and can impact learning and everyday functioning. Memory encompasses the encoding, storage, and retrieval of information over time. Different types of memory include sensory memory, short-term memory, long-term memory, and working memory. Memory processes rely on brain structures like the hippocampus for declarative memory, amygdala for emotional memory, and frontal lobes for working memory and executive functions. Learning involves acquiring new knowledge, skills, or behaviors through experience, instruction, or observation. Neural mechanisms of learning include synaptic plasticity, Hebbian learning principles, and reinforcement mechanisms mediated by dopamine and reward pathways. Learning styles and individual differences in learning reflect variations in cognitive strategies, attentional abilities, and memory processes. Executive functions are higher-order cognitive processes that enable goal-directed behavior, planning, problem-solving, inhibition, and cognitive flexibility. The prefrontal cortex plays a central role in executive functions, coordinating cognitive control, decision-making, and self-regulation. Executive dysfunction is implicated in conditions like traumatic brain injury, dementia, and executive function disorders. Language and communication involve complex cognitive processes, including language comprehension, production, semantics, syntax, and pragmatics. Language processing relies on specialized brain areas like Broca's area for speech production and Wernicke's area for language comprehension, as well as distributed networks for semantic processing and discourse comprehension. Bilingualism, language development, and language disorders offer insights into the neurobiology of language and linguistic cognition. In summary, cognitive functions encompass a broad spectrum of mental processes, from perception and attention to memory, learning, executive functions, and language. These functions are mediated by neural networks and brain regions specialized for different cognitive tasks, highlighting the brain's adaptive and multifaceted nature in supporting complex human cognition. Chapter 5. Cognitive Functions. Continued. Decision-making is a fundamental cognitive process that involves evaluating options, weighing outcomes, and selecting courses of action. Brain regions such as the prefrontal cortex, ventromedial prefrontal cortex, and striatum play key roles in decision-making processes, including risk assessment, reward processing, and impulse control. Decision-making strategies may vary based on individual differences, cognitive biases, and situational factors. Problem-solving is the cognitive ability to identify challenges, formulate solutions, and overcome obstacles. Problem-solving strategies include algorithms, heuristics, trial and error, and insight-based approaches. Brain areas like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and parietal lobes are involved in analytical reasoning, while the anterior cingulate cortex and basal ganglia contribute to monitoring and adjusting problem-solving strategies. Creativity is the capacity to generate novel ideas, solutions, or artistic expressions. Neural mechanisms of creativity involve divergent thinking, associative thinking, and cognitive flexibility. Brain regions like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, temporal lobes for semantic processing, and default mode network for spontaneous cognition interact to facilitate creative processes. Creative individuals may exhibit heightened connectivity between brain networks and enhanced integration of distant associations. Imagination is the mental ability to visualize, simulate, or conceptualize hypothetical scenarios, ideas, or sensory experiences. Imaginative processes involve mental imagery, spatial reasoning, and scenario construction. Brain regions like the parietal lobes for spatial processing, occipital lobes for visual imagery, and hippocampus for episodic memory retrieval contribute to imagination and mental time travel. Imagination plays a crucial role in problem-solving, planning, storytelling, and artistic creativity. Metacognition refers to awareness and control of one's own cognitive processes, including monitoring, evaluating, and regulating mental activities. Metacognitive strategies include self-reflection, self-monitoring, goal setting, and cognitive regulation. Brain regions associated with metacognition include the prefrontal cortex for executive control, anterior cingulate cortex for error monitoring, and insula for interoceptive awareness. Metacognitive skills enhance learning, decision-making, and adaptive behavior by fostering self-awareness and strategic thinking. Social cognition encompasses mental processes involved in understanding, interpreting, and responding to social cues, emotions, intentions, and beliefs. Theory of mind, empathy, perspective-taking, and social perception are key components of social cognition. Brain regions such as the medial prefrontal cortex for mentalizing, superior temporal sulcus for social perception, and mirror neuron system for empathy support social cognitive processes. Social cognition is crucial for interpersonal communication, social interaction, empathy, and social problem solving. In summary, cognitive functions encompass a diverse range of mental processes that underpin human cognition, behavior, and social interaction. These functions are mediated by neural networks, specialized brain regions, and dynamic interactions between brain networks, highlighting the brain's adaptive and integrative capacity in supporting complex cognitive abilities. Chapter 6. Consciousness. Consciousness is a multifaceted phenomenon central to human experience, encompassing awareness, subjective experience, self-reflection, and the sense of being. Understanding consciousness involves exploring its various dimensions, from wakefulness and attention to self-awareness and higher-order cognitive processes. Wakefulness and arousal are foundational aspects of consciousness, representing the state of being awake and alert. Brainstem structures like the reticular activating system, RAS, play a key role in regulating wakefulness, sleep-wake transitions, and arousal levels. Disorders of consciousness, such as coma, vegetative state, and minimally conscious state, highlight the complexities of consciousness and its neural underpinnings. Attention is the cognitive process of selectively focusing mental resources on specific stimuli or tasks while filtering out distractions. Attentional mechanisms involve interactions between brain regions like the prefrontal cortex for top-down control, parietal lobes for spatial attention, and thalamus for sensory gating. Attentional deficits are observed in conditions like attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and can impact learning, memory, and cognitive performance. Self-awareness is the capacity to recognize oneself as an individual with thoughts, beliefs, desires, and experiences. Brain regions associated with self-awareness include the prefrontal cortex for introspection, medial prefrontal cortex for self-referential processing, and temporoparietal junction for body awareness. Disorders affecting self-awareness, such as anosognosia or depersonalization disorder, shed light on the neural basis of self-consciousness. Higher-order cognitive processes, such as metacognition, theory of mind, and self-reflection, contribute to conscious awareness and introspective abilities. Metacognitive skills involve monitoring, evaluating, and regulating one's own cognitive processes, fostering self-awareness and adaptive decision-making. Theory of mind refers to the ability to attribute mental states, beliefs, intentions, emotions to oneself and others, facilitating social cognition and empathy. The Integrated Information Theory, IIT, proposes a framework for understanding consciousness as the integration of diverse information within a unified cognitive system. According to IIT, consciousness arises from complex interactions among neural elements that generate integrated informational patterns, leading to subjective experiences and phenomenal awareness. Exploring altered states of consciousness, such as meditation, psychedelic experiences, or lucid dreaming, provides insights into the variability and plasticity of consciousness. Neural correlates of altered states reveal shifts in brain activity, connectivity, and subjective perceptions, highlighting the brain's dynamic nature in generating conscious experiences. In summary, consciousness encompasses wakefulness, attention, self-awareness, and higher-order cognitive processes that contribute to subjective experience and phenomenal awareness. Understanding the neural mechanisms of consciousness is a complex and multidisciplinary endeavor, integrating insights from neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, and cognitive science. Chapter 7. Awareness and Self-Reflection. Awareness and self-reflection are integral components of consciousness, enabling individuals to monitor, evaluate, and reflect on their thoughts, emotions, and experiences. These processes contribute to self-awareness, introspection, and metacognitive abilities that shape our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Awareness encompasses the capacity to perceive and comprehend sensory inputs, thoughts, emotions, and external stimuli. Brain regions involved in awareness include the thalamus for sensory gating, sensory cortices for sensory processing, and frontal lobes for attentional control. Awareness allows us to engage with our environment, make meaning of experiences, and navigate social interactions. Self-reflection involves introspective processes where individuals examine their beliefs, values, goals, and identities. The medial prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, and posterior cingulate cortex are implicated in self-referential processing and self-reflection. Self-reflective activities such as journaling, mindfulness, or therapy promote self-awareness, emotional regulation, and personal growth. Metacognition is the cognitive ability to monitor, evaluate, and regulate one's own mental processes, including thoughts, beliefs, and cognitive strategies. Metacognitive skills facilitate self-awareness, adaptive learning, problem-solving, and decision-making. Brain regions associated with metacognition include the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, anterior cingulate cortex for error monitoring, and insula for interoceptive awareness. Mindfulness practices such as meditation cultivate awareness, attentional control, and non-judgmental acceptance of present experiences. Brain imaging studies of mindfulness practitioners reveal changes in brain activity and connectivity associated with attention regulation, emotion regulation, and self-awareness. Mindfulness-based interventions are utilized in clinical settings to reduce stress, improve well-being, and enhance emotional resilience. Self-schema and self-concept are cognitive frameworks that shape individuals' beliefs, perceptions, and interpretations of themselves. Self-schema represents organized knowledge about oneself, including roles, attributes, and beliefs. Self-concept encompasses broader aspects of identity, including social roles, personal values, and self-esteem. Brain regions involved in self-schema and self-concept include the medial prefrontal cortex, temporoparietal junction, and hippocampus. Narrative identity refers to the autobiographical story we construct about ourselves, integrating past experiences, goals, values, and self-perceptions into a coherent narrative. Brain areas involved in narrative identity include the hippocampus for memory consolidation, prefrontal cortex for autobiographical reasoning, and default mode network for self-referential processing. Narrative identity contributes to a sense of continuity, meaning-making, and personal growth. In summary, awareness and self-reflection are essential components of consciousness and self-awareness, fostering metacognitive abilities, emotional regulation, and personal growth. Understanding the neural mechanisms underlying awareness and self-reflection provides insights into human cognition, identity formation, and psychological well-being. Chapter 8. Emotions and Feelings. Emotions and feelings are intricate aspects of the human experience, encompassing physiological responses, subjective experiences, and social expressions that influence cognition, behavior, and well-being. Understanding the neurobiology of emotions offers insights into emotional processing, regulation, and the role of emotions in decision-making and social interactions. Emotional processing involves brain structures like the amygdala, insula, anterior cingulate cortex, and prefrontal cortex, which form the neural circuitry of emotions. The amygdala plays a central role in emotional learning, fear conditioning, and threat detection, while the insula is involved in interoceptive awareness and visceral responses. The prefrontal cortex modulates emotional responses, inhibits impulsive reactions, and regulates emotional expression. Emotional regulation encompasses strategies for modulating emotional experiences, including cognitive reappraisal, expressive suppression, and emotion regulation techniques. Brain areas involved in emotion regulation include the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, orbitofrontal cortex for reward processing, and ventromedial prefrontal cortex for emotion evaluation. Dysregulation of emotions is observed in mood disorders, anxiety disorders, and emotional dysfunctions. Subjective feelings are the conscious experiences of emotions, including joy, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, and disgust. Emotions involve physiological changes, for example, heart rate, skin conductance, cognitive appraisals, and expressive behaviors, for example, facial expressions, body language. Cultural influences, social norms, and individual differences shape emotional expressions and interpretations, leading to variations in emotional experiences. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the emotions, perspectives, and experiences of others, fostering social connections, compassion, and prosocial behavior. Empathy involves neural networks such as the mirror neuron system, medial prefrontal cortex, temporoparietal junction, and anterior insula, which support emotional resonance, perspective taking, and theory of mind. Empathy deficits are observed in disorders like autism spectrum disorder and psychopathy. Emotional intelligence refers to the capacity to perceive, understand, manage, and express emotions effectively, promoting emotional self-awareness, social skills, and interpersonal relationships. Emotional intelligence involves components such as self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social awareness, and relationship management. Brain regions associated with emotional intelligence include the prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, and insula, which contribute to emotional self-control, empathy, and social cognition. In summary, emotions and feelings are complex phenomena shaped by neurobiological processes, cognitive appraisals, social influences, and individual experiences. Understanding emotional processing, regulation, and empathy provides insights into human behavior, social interactions, mental health, and well-being. Chapter 9. Perception and Reality. Perception and reality are intertwined aspects of human cognition, shaping our understanding of the world and guiding our actions and decisions. The brain's role in processing sensory inputs, constructing perceptual experiences, and interpreting reality highlights the dynamic nature of perception and the subjective nature of reality. Sensory processing involves brain areas specialized for different sensory modalities, including the visual cortex for vision, auditory cortex for hearing, somatosensory cortex for touch, gustatory cortex for taste, and olfactory cortex for smell. These sensory cortices receive and process sensory inputs, transforming raw sensory data into meaningful perceptual experiences. Perceptual organization refers to the brain's ability to organize and interpret sensory information, grouping elements into coherent perceptual objects, patterns, and scenes. Gestalt principles such as proximity, similarity, continuity, closure, and figure-ground segregation guide perceptual organization and shape our perceptions of the environment. Perceptual illusions, such as the Müller-Lyer illusion or the Ponzo illusion, reveal how contextual cues and cognitive biases influence perception. Perceptual constancies are mechanisms that maintain stable perceptions of objects despite changes in sensory inputs, such as size constancy, shape constancy, and color constancy. These constancies allow us to perceive objects consistently across different viewing conditions, lighting conditions, and distances. Brain processes involved in perceptual constancies include top-down modulation, contextual integration, and multisensory integration. Reality testing is the cognitive process of evaluating the correspondence between perceived reality and objective reality, distinguishing between veridical perceptions and illusions or hallucinations. Reality monitoring involves brain regions such as the prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, parietal lobes for spatial awareness, and temporal lobes for memory retrieval, which contribute to reality testing and source monitoring. Perceptual distortions and cognitive biases can lead to misperceptions, misinterpretations, and errors in judgment, influencing decision-making and behavior. Cognitive biases, such as confirmation bias, anchoring bias, and availability heuristic, reflect systematic deviations from objective reality due to cognitive shortcuts and information processing heuristics. Understanding cognitive biases and perceptual distortions is essential for critical thinking, problem-solving, and decision-making. In summary, perception and reality are complex constructs shaped by sensory inputs, cognitive processes, contextual cues, and subjective interpretations. The brain's role in sensory processing, perceptual organization, constancies, and reality testing underscores the dynamic interplay between perception and cognition. Chapter 10. Memory and Identity. Memory and identity are intricately linked aspects of human cognition, shaping our sense of self, personal narratives, and continuity of experience. Understanding the neurobiology of memory offers insights into memory processes, autobiographical narratives, and the role of memory in identity formation. Memory processes involve encoding, storage, and retrieval of information, encompassing sensory memory, short-term memory, long-term memory, and working memory. Brain regions implicated in memory include the hippocampus for declarative memory, amygdala for emotional memory, prefrontal cortex for working memory, and parietal lobes for episodic memory retrieval. Memory consolidation involves neural processes that stabilize and strengthen memories over time. Types of memory include episodic memory, personal experiences, semantic memory, general knowledge, procedural memory, skills and habits, and autobiographical memory, personal life events. Autobiographical memory forms the basis of narrative identity, integrating past experiences, self-perceptions, and life stories into a coherent narrative. Brain regions involved in autobiographical memory include the hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, and default mode network. Memory retrieval involves reconstructing past experiences from stored information influenced by context, emotional salience, and cognitive schemas. Memory errors and distortions, such as false memories or confabulations, highlight the reconstructive nature of memory and the role of cognitive processes in memory retrieval. Brain mechanisms underlying memory retrieval include pattern completion, pattern separation, and context-dependent retrieval cues. Memory disorders such as amnesia, dementia, and memory impairments affect identity formation, autobiographical narratives, and personal continuity. Amnesia, characterized by memory loss, disrupts episodic memory and autobiographical memory, leading to identity disruptions and challenges in constructing a coherent life story. Dementia, including Alzheimer's disease, affects multiple memory systems and cognitive functions, impacting identity, self-awareness, and social interactions. Narrative identity refers to the autobiographical story we construct about ourselves, integrating past experiences, goals, values, and self-perceptions into a coherent narrative. Brain areas involved in narrative identity include the hippocampus for memory consolidation, prefrontal cortex for autobiographical reasoning, and default mode network for self-referential processing. Narrative identity contributes to a sense of continuity, meaning-making, and personal growth. Identity development encompasses the processes through which individuals form and maintain their sense of self, including self-concept, self-esteem, and self-identity. Brain regions implicated in identity development include the prefrontal cortex for self-awareness, anterior cingulate cortex for self-monitoring, and medial prefrontal cortex for self-referential processing. Identity formation is influenced by social, cultural, and environmental factors, shaping individual differences in identity expression. In summary, memory and identity are intertwined aspects of human cognition, involving neural processes, autobiographical narratives, and personal continuity. Understanding the neurobiology of memory and identity sheds light on the dynamic interplay between memory processes, self-concept, and life narratives. Chapter 11, Creativity and Imagination. Creativity and imagination are essential aspects of human cognition, fueling innovation, problem-solving, artistic expression, and conceptual exploration. Exploring the neurobiology of creativity offers insights into creative processes, divergent thinking, and the neural basis of imagination. Creativity involves generating novel ideas, solutions, or products that are original, meaningful, and valuable. Brain mechanisms of creativity include divergent thinking, generating multiple ideas, associative thinking, connecting disparate concepts, cognitive flexibility, adapting to changing demands, and insight, sudden realization or aha moments. Brain regions implicated in creativity include the prefrontal cortex, temporal lobes, and default mode network. Imagination is the mental ability to visualize, simulate, or conceptualize hypothetical scenarios, ideas, or sensory experiences. Imaginative processes involve mental imagery, spatial reasoning, scenario construction, and symbolic thinking. Brain regions involved in imagination include the parietal lobes for spatial processing, occipital lobes for visual imagery, and hippocampus for episodic memory retrieval. Imagination bridges past experiences with future possibilities, fostering creativity and cognitive exploration. Creative thinking styles vary among individuals and domains, including scientific creativity, artistic creativity, problem-solving creativity, and everyday creativity. Brain networks associated with creative thinking exhibit heightened connectivity, flexible information processing, and integration of distant associations. Creative expertise involves domain-specific knowledge, skills, and strategies that enhance creative performance and innovative problem-solving. The default mode network, DMN, plays a crucial role in creative cognition, supporting spontaneous cognition, self-referential processing, mind-wandering, and idea generation. Activation of the DMN is associated with creative insight, divergent thinking, and associative reasoning. Creative individuals often exhibit increased DMN activity during creative tasks and periods of incubation or idea generation. Brain imaging studies of creative individuals reveal patterns of neural activity and connectivity associated with creative thinking, including increased activity in frontal and temporal regions, reduced inhibition in default mode network areas, and enhanced communication between brain networks. Neuroplasticity, neurochemical modulation, and neural synchrony contribute to creative processes and innovative problem-solving. In summary, creativity and imagination are fundamental aspects of human cognition, involving neural processes, cognitive strategies, and domain-specific expertise. Understanding the neurobiology of creativity offers insights into creative thinking, problem-solving, and the dynamic nature of human imagination. Chapter 12. Decision-making and problem-solving. Decision-making and problem-solving are cognitive processes essential for navigating complex challenges, evaluating options, and making effective choices. Exploring the neurobiology of decision-making offers insights into cognitive biases, heuristics, and the neural mechanisms underlying rational decision-making. Decision-making involves evaluating alternatives, assessing risks and rewards, considering consequences, and selecting optimal courses of action. Brain regions implicated in decision-making include the prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, ventromedial prefrontal cortex for value-based decision-making, dorsolateral prefrontal cortex for working memory and reasoning, and striatum for reward processing. Decision-making processes may be influenced by emotions, cognitive biases, and contextual factors. Cognitive biases are systematic deviations from rational decision-making, reflecting cognitive shortcuts, heuristics, and information processing biases. Common cognitive biases include confirmation bias, favoring information that confirms pre-existing beliefs, anchoring bias, relying too heavily on initial information, availability heuristic, overestimating the importance of easily recalled information, and framing effects, being swayed by how information is presented. Understanding cognitive biases is crucial for mitigating decision-making errors and improving decision quality. Heuristics are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb used to simplify decision-making and problem-solving, often leading to efficient but imperfect outcomes. Types of heuristics include availability heuristic, estimating likelihood based on readily available examples; representativeness heuristic, classifying based on resemblance to a prototype; and anchoring heuristic, anchoring judgments to initial information. Heuristics can lead to biases and decision-making errors if misapplied or overused. Problem-solving involves identifying challenges, generating solutions, evaluating alternatives, and implementing effective strategies. Brain regions involved in problem-solving include the prefrontal cortex for cognitive control and planning, parietal lobes for spatial reasoning and attention, and basal ganglia for procedural learning and habit formation. Problem-solving strategies may vary based on task demands, domain expertise, and individual cognitive styles. Insight is a sudden realization or aha moment that leads to novel solutions or problem-solving breakthroughs. Insightful problem-solving involves restructuring mental representations, overcoming mental blocks, and generating creative solutions. Brain mechanisms of insight include shifts in neural activity and connectivity, often accompanied by increased theta oscillations and decreased alpha oscillations. Decision-making under uncertainty involves assessing probabilities, risks, and uncertainties when making choices in ambiguous or unpredictable situations. Brain processes associated with decision-making under uncertainty include risk assessment, reward anticipation, and adaptive decision strategies. Neuroeconomic studies examine neural correlates of economic decision-making, such as risk aversion, intertemporal choices, and social preferences. In summary, decision-making and problem-solving are complex cognitive processes influenced by neural mechanisms, cognitive biases, heuristics, and contextual factors. Understanding the neurobiology of decision-making enhances our ability to make informed choices, mitigate biases, and improve problem-solving strategies. Chapter 13. Language and Communication. Language and communication are foundational aspects of human cognition, enabling us to convey thoughts, emotions, intentions, and knowledge through spoken, written, or gestural forms. Exploring the neurobiology of language offers insights into language processing, semantic representation, language acquisition, and the neural basis of communication. Language processing involves understanding and producing linguistic units, including phonemes, morphemes, words, phrases, and sentences. Brain regions implicated in language processing include Broca's area for speech production, Wernicke's area for language comprehension, angular gyrus for reading and writing, and the arcuate fasciculus for language integration. Language processing engages distributed neural networks that support phonological, syntactic, semantic, and pragmatic aspects of language. Semantic representation refers to the mental organization of meaning and concepts, linking words, symbols, and ideas to their reference in the world. Brain mechanisms of semantic processing involve distributed networks in the temporal lobes, parietal lobes, and prefrontal cortex, which support semantic memory retrieval, category formation, and conceptual knowledge. Semantic networks organize semantic relations, hierarchies, and associations, facilitating language comprehension and knowledge representation. Language acquisition is the process of learning and mastering language skills, including phonology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Brain plasticity and language development occur during critical periods in early childhood, with sensitive periods for acquiring phonological distinctions, grammar rules, and vocabulary. Brain regions involved in language acquisition include the superior temporal gyrus for auditory processing, inferior frontal gyrus for language production, and hippocampus for memory consolidation. Bilingualism and multilingualism involve speaking and understanding multiple languages, which influence cognitive processes, linguistic flexibility, and neural plasticity. Bilingual brains exhibit increased gray matter density in language-related areas, enhanced cognitive control, and improved executive functions. Language switching, code switching, and language interference reflect dynamic interactions between languages in bilingual individuals. Pragmatics refers to the social and contextual aspects of language use, including conversational rules, speech acts, politeness strategies, and communicative intentions. Pragmatic skills involve understanding implied meaning, interpreting nonverbal cues, adjusting speech registers, and negotiating meaning in social interactions. Brain regions associated with pragmatics include the prefrontal cortex for social cognition, temporoparietal junction for theory of mind, and mirror neuron system for empathy and social mirroring. Communication encompasses verbal and nonverbal interactions that convey information, emotions, intentions, and social signals. Nonverbal communication includes facial expressions, gestures, body language, eye contact, and vocal intonation, which complement verbal communication and convey additional layers of meaning. Brain mechanisms of communication involve integrating verbal and nonverbal cues, processing emotional expressions, and coordinating social interactions. In summary, language and communication are complex cognitive processes involving neural networks, semantic representation, language acquisition, bilingualism, pragmatics, and social communication. Understanding the neurobiology of language and communication enhances our appreciation of human linguistic abilities, social interactions, and cultural diversity. Chapter 14. Learning and Education. Learning and education are transformative processes that shape cognitive development, knowledge acquisition, skill mastery, and lifelong learning. Exploring the neurobiology of learning offers insights into learning mechanisms, memory consolidation, skill acquisition, and the role of education in brain plasticity. Learning involves acquiring new knowledge, skills, behaviors, or attitudes through experience, instruction, observation, or self-directed exploration. Brain mechanisms of learning include synaptic plasticity, such as long-term potentiation and long-term depression, Hebbian learning principles, neurons that fire together wire together, and neurochemical modulation, dopamine, acetylcholine, serotonin. Learning experiences shape neural connections, strengthen synaptic pathways, and facilitate information processing. Memory consolidation is the process of stabilizing and strengthening memories over time, involving neural processes that transfer information from short-term memory to long-term memory. Brain regions implicated in memory consolidation include the hippocampus for declarative memory, amygdala for emotional memory, and neocortex for memory storage. Sleep plays a crucial role in memory consolidation, promoting synaptic changes and memory integration during REM and slow-wave sleep stages. Skill acquisition involves learning and mastering motor skills, cognitive skills, perceptual skills, and social skills through practice, feedback, and repetition. Brain regions involved in skill acquisition include the motor cortex for motor skills, cerebellum for coordination and motor learning, basal ganglia for procedural learning, and prefrontal cortex for executive functions and cognitive skills. Deliberate practice and spaced repetition enhance skill acquisition and expertise development. Metacognition refers to awareness and control of one's own cognitive processes, including monitoring, evaluating, and regulating learning strategies. Metacognitive skills enhance learning efficiency, problem-solving abilities, and adaptive learning behaviors. Brain regions associated with metacognition include the prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, anterior cingulate cortex for error monitoring, and insula for interoceptive awareness. Educational neuroscience integrates insights from neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and education to inform teaching practices, curriculum design, and educational interventions. Brain-based learning strategies leverage neuroscientific principles to enhance learning outcomes, promote engagement, and address individual learning styles. Educational interventions, targeting executive functions, attentional control, and memory enhancement, contribute to academic success and lifelong learning. In summary, learning and education are dynamic processes shaped by neural plasticity, memory consolidation, skill acquisition, metacognition, and educational practices. Understanding the neurobiology of learning enhances educational strategies, promotes effective teaching methods, and supports lifelong learning initiatives. Chapter 15. Social Cognition and Relationships. Social cognition and relationships are fundamental aspects of human interaction, involving mental processes that enable us to understand, interpret, and respond to social cues, emotions, intentions, and beliefs. Exploring the neurobiology of social cognition offers insights into theory of mind, empathy, social perception, and the neural basis of social relationships. Theory of mind refers to the ability to attribute mental states, beliefs, desires, intentions to oneself and others, enabling perspective-taking, empathic understanding, and social inference. Brain regions implicated in theory of mind include the medial prefrontal cortex for mentalizing, temporoparietal junction for perspective-taking, and superior temporal sulcus for social perception. Theory of mind deficits are observed in autism spectrum disorder and related conditions. Empathy is the capacity to understand and share the emotions, perspectives, and experiences of others, fostering emotional resonance, compassion, and prosocial behavior. Brain mechanisms of empathy involve the mirror neuron system, medial prefrontal cortex, anterior insular, and anterior cingulate cortex, which support emotional mirroring, affective empathy, and cognitive empathy. Empathy promotes social bonding, cooperation, and altruistic behavior. Social perception involves interpreting facial expressions, body language, vocal cues, and contextual information to infer emotions, intentions, and social meanings. Brain regions associated with social perception include the fusiform face area for face processing, superior temporal sulcus for biological motion and social cues, and ventral striatum for social reward processing. Social perception relies on domain-specific neural networks that integrate sensory inputs with social knowledge and expectations. Interpersonal relationships encompass emotional bonds, social connections, and interactions with family members, friends, peers, and romantic partners. Brain mechanisms of relationship formation and maintenance involve oxytocin, the bonding hormone, dopamine, reward processing, and neural circuits implicated in social reward and attachment. Attachment styles, such as secure attachment, insecure attachment, and disorganized attachment, influence relationship dynamics and emotional intimacy. Social influence refers to the impact of social contexts, norms, and group dynamics on behavior, attitudes, and decision-making. Brain processes involved in social influence include conformity, adhering to group norms, social facilitation, enhanced performance in the presence of others, and social comparison, evaluating oneself relative to others. Social influence can lead to conformity, obedience, peer pressure, and group cohesion. Social cognition disorders such as alexithymia, social cognitive impairment, and empathy deficits affect social functioning, emotional regulation, and interpersonal relationships. Interventions targeting social cognition skills, social skills training, and empathy-building exercises can enhance social interactions and improve quality of life for individuals with social cognition disorders. In summary, social cognition and relationships are fundamental aspects of human cognition involving neural mechanisms, empathic abilities, social perception, interpersonal dynamics, and social influence. Understanding the neurobiology of social cognition enhances our appreciation of social behavior, emotional intelligence, and the complexities of human relationships. Chapter 16. Emotions and Emotional Regulation. Emotions and emotional regulation play crucial roles in shaping our thoughts, behaviors, and social interactions. Exploring the neurobiology of emotions offers insights into emotional processing, regulation strategies, and the impact of emotions on mental health and well-being. Emotional processing involves the brain's ability to perceive, interpret, and respond to emotional stimuli, including facial expressions, body language, and situational cues. Brain regions implicated in emotional processing include the amygdala for emotional learning and threat detection, insula for interoceptive awareness and emotional experience, and ventromedial prefrontal cortex for emotion evaluation and regulation. Emotions encompass a wide range of experiences, including joy, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, and disgust, each with distinct physiological, cognitive, and behavioral components. Emotional regulation refers to strategies used to modulate emotional experiences, expressions, and responses, promoting adaptive coping and psychological well-being. Types of emotional regulation include cognitive reappraisal, changing the interpretation of emotional stimuli, expressive suppression, inhibiting emotional expression, distraction, redirecting attention away from emotional triggers, and mindfulness, non-judgmental awareness of present experiences. Brain mechanisms of emotional regulation involve interactions between the prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, amygdala for emotion processing, and anterior cingulate cortex for emotion monitoring. Emotional intelligence encompasses the ability to perceive, understand, manage, and express emotions effectively, fostering self-awareness, empathy, social skills, and emotional resilience. Components of emotional intelligence include self-awareness, recognizing one's own emotions, self-regulation, managing emotions effectively, empathy, understanding and sharing others' emotions, social awareness, sensitivity to social cues and context, and relationship management, building and maintaining healthy relationships. Emotional intelligence contributes to adaptive coping, interpersonal effectiveness, and psychological well-being. Emotion regulation strategies are influenced by individual differences, cultural norms, and developmental factors, shaping emotional responses and coping mechanisms. Emotion dysregulation is associated with various mental health conditions such as mood disorders, depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and impulse control disorders, borderline personality disorder, substance use disorders. Interventions targeting emotion regulation skills, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, mindfulness-based interventions, and emotion-focused therapies can improve emotion regulation abilities and mental health outcomes. Emotional contagion is the phenomenon of experiencing and sharing emotions with others through social interactions, mirroring emotional expressions, and empathic resonance. Brain mechanisms of emotional contagion involve the mirror neuron system, limbic system, and social brain networks implicated in empathy and social cognition. Emotional contagion contributes to social bonding, emotional synchrony, and collective emotional experiences within groups and communities. In summary, emotions and emotional regulation are integral aspects of human cognition and social functioning involving neural mechanisms, emotion regulation strategies, emotional intelligence, and interpersonal dynamics. Understanding the neurobiology of emotions enhances our ability to navigate emotional experiences, cultivate emotional resilience, and foster healthy relationships. Chapter 17. Attention and Concentration. Attention and concentration are cognitive processes that enable focused awareness, selective processing of information, and sustained mental effort. Exploring the neurobiology of attention offers insights into attentional mechanisms, attentional control, and the impact of attention on cognitive performance and learning. Attention is the cognitive process of selectively focusing mental resources on specific stimuli, tasks, or goals while ignoring distractions. Types of attention include selective attention, focusing on relevant information, divided attention, processing multiple sources of information simultaneously, sustained attention, maintaining focus over time, and executive attention, allocating resources based on task demands. Brain regions implicated in attention include the prefrontal cortex for executive control, parietal lobes for spatial attention, and superior colliculus for orienting to sensory stimuli. Attentional control refers to the ability to regulate and manage attentional resources, shifting focus, inhibiting irrelevant information, and sustaining attentional engagement. Attentional control processes involve top-down mechanisms, goal-directed attention, bottom-up mechanisms, stimulus-driven attention, and conflict resolution, resolving competing attentional demands. Brain networks supporting attentional control include the dorsal attention network for goal-directed attention, ventral attention network for stimulus-driven attention, and default mode network for spontaneous cognition. Attention deficits are observed in conditions such as attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, characterized by difficulties in sustaining attention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. Brain mechanisms underlying attentional deficits in ADHD involve dysfunction in frontal striatal circuits, dopamine neurotransmission, and executive functions. Interventions for attentional deficits include behavioral strategies, cognitive training, and pharmacological treatments, targeting attentional control and impulse regulation. Attentional biases are tendencies to selectively attend to certain stimuli or information based on individual preferences, cognitive biases, emotional salience, or learned associations. Common attentional biases include selective attention to threat, vigilance for potential danger, attentional capture, automatic attraction to salient stimuli, and attentional blink, temporal limitations in rapid attention shifts. Attentional biases influence perception, memory encoding, and decision-making processes. Mindfulness meditation involves cultivating present-moment awareness, non-judgmental attention, and focused concentration on sensory experiences, thoughts, and emotions. Brain mechanisms of mindfulness meditation include changes in neural activity and connectivity associated with attentional control, emotion regulation, and self-awareness. Mindfulness practices enhance attentional stability, cognitive flexibility, and stress resilience, benefiting mental health and well-being. In summary, attention and concentration are fundamental cognitive processes that enable focused awareness, selective processing, and cognitive control. Understanding the neurobiology of attention enhances our ability to manage attentional resources, improve cognitive performance, and cultivate mindful awareness. Chapter 18. Executive Functions. Executive functions are higher-order cognitive processes that facilitate goal-directed behavior, cognitive control, decision-making, and adaptive functioning. Exploring the neurobiology of executive functions offers insights into neural circuits, cognitive processes, and the role of executive functions in everyday life and cognitive development. Executive functions encompass multiple cognitive processes, including working memory, temporary storage and manipulation of information, cognitive flexibility, shifting between tasks or mental sets, inhibitory control, suppressing irrelevant or prepotent responses, planning and organization, goal-directed behavior and problem-solving, and self-regulation, monitoring and adjusting behavior based on goals. Brain regions implicated in executive functions include the prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, anterior cingulate cortex for error monitoring, basal ganglia for motor control and habit formation, and parietal lobes for spatial attention and working memory. Working memory is essential for maintaining and manipulating information in mind, supporting cognitive tasks such as mental arithmetic, language comprehension, problem-solving, and decision-making. Brain mechanisms of working memory involve interactions between the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex for storage and manipulation, parietal lobes for attentional control, and hippocampus for memory encoding and retrieval. Working memory capacity varies among individuals and influences cognitive performance in complex tasks. Cognitive flexibility refers to the ability to adapt and switch between different tasks, rules, or mental sets in response to changing demands or environmental cues. Brain mechanisms of cognitive flexibility involve the prefrontal cortex for task switching and set shifting, striatum for response inhibition and cognitive control, and anterior cingulate cortex for conflict monitoring and error detection. Cognitive flexibility enables adaptive problem-solving, creative thinking, and behavioral adaptation. Inhibitory control is the ability to suppress irrelevant, automatic, or prepotent responses, resisting distractions, temptations, or impulsive actions. Brain mechanisms of inhibitory control involve interactions between the prefrontal cortex for response inhibition, basal ganglia for motor inhibition, and anterior cingulate cortex for conflict resolution. Inhibitory control deficits are observed in conditions such as impulse control disorders, addiction, and attentional deficits. Planning and organization involve setting goals, generating strategies, sequencing steps, and monitoring progress toward goal attainment. Brain mechanisms of planning and organization include the prefrontal cortex for goal-directed behavior and task sequencing, basal ganglia for action selection and execution, and hippocampus for episodic memory and contextual retrieval. Planning abilities contribute to effective problem-solving, decision-making, and task management. Self-regulation refers to monitoring and controlling one's own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors to achieve desired outcomes or adhere to standards. Brain mechanisms of self-regulation involve the prefrontal cortex for self-monitoring and impulse control, anterior cingulate cortex for error monitoring and conflict resolution, and insula for interoceptive awareness and emotional regulation. Self-regulation skills contribute to emotional resilience, self-control, and adaptive functioning. Executive function deficits are observed in conditions such as executive dysfunction, attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, traumatic brain injury, TBI, and neurodegenerative disorders. Interventions. Targeting executive functions include cognitive training, behavioral strategies, environmental modifications, and pharmacological treatments that enhance cognitive control, working memory, inhibitory control, and planning abilities. In summary, executive functions are essential cognitive processes that enable goal-directed behavior, cognitive control, adaptive functioning, and successful performance in daily tasks. Understanding the neurobiology of executive functions enhances our ability to improve cognitive skills, foster self-regulation, and support cognitive development across the lifespan. Chapter 19. Problem of Consciousness. The problem of consciousness is one of the most intriguing and challenging questions in philosophy and neuroscience. Exploring the neurobiology of consciousness offers insights into subjective experiences, self-awareness, phenomenal awareness, and the neural correlates of consciousness. Consciousness refers to the subjective experience of being aware of oneself, one's thoughts, sensations, emotions, and surroundings. Theories of consciousness range from dualism, mind and body as distinct entities, to monism, mind and brain as inseparable, with debates about the nature of consciousness, its origin, and the relationship between brain activity and subjective experiences. Neural correlates of consciousness, NCC, are brain structures and processes associated with specific conscious experiences, such as perception, attention, memory, and self-awareness. Research on NCC involves identifying neural signatures of consciousness using neuroimaging techniques, fMRI, EEG, MMG, and studying brain activity patterns during conscious states, altered states of consciousness, dreaming, meditation, and unconscious processes. Global workspace theory proposes that consciousness arises from widespread neural activity and information integration across distributed brain networks, enabling access to conscious contents and cognitive functions. Brain regions implicated in the global workspace model include the prefrontal cortex for cognitive control, parietal lobes for attentional processing, thalamus for information gating, and posterior cortical areas for sensory integration. Integrated information theory, IIT, posits that consciousness emerges from integrated neural networks that generate complex causal interactions and informational structures, leading to unified subjective experiences and phenomenal awareness. IIT emphasizes the role of neuronal integration, information complexity, and causal relationships in generating conscious states. Consciousness disorders such as coma, vegetative state, locked-in syndrome, and altered states of consciousness, for example, anesthesia, meditation, raise ethical and philosophical questions about the nature of consciousness, personhood, and the boundaries of subjective experience. Neuroethical considerations include issues of consciousness assessment, end-of-life decisions, patient autonomy, and informed consent. The hard problem of consciousness, as articulated by philosopher David Chalmers, refers to the challenge of explaining how subjective experiences, qualia, emerge from neural processes, posing fundamental questions about the nature of mind, perception, and reality. Debates about consciousness encompass philosophical, scientific, and interdisciplinary perspectives, exploring the nature of consciousness, its neural basis, and implications for understanding human experience. In summary, the problem of consciousness remains a central and complex issue in neuroscience and philosophy, involving debates about subjective experiences, neural correlates, theories of consciousness, altered states, and ethical considerations. Understanding the neurobiology of consciousness deepens our exploration of consciousness, self-awareness, and the mysteries of subjective experience. Chapter 20. Future Directions in Neuroscience. Future directions in neuroscience encompass advancing technologies, interdisciplinary collaborations, ethical considerations, and transformative discoveries that will shape the landscape of brain research and cognitive science. Exploring future trends in neuroscience offers insights into emerging fields, innovative methodologies, and potential applications of neuroscientific knowledge. Neurotechnology and brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, are revolutionizing neuroscience by enabling direct communication between brains and machines, enhancing prosthetic control, restoring sensory functions, and augmenting cognitive abilities. Advances in neuroimaging, for example, functional MRI, diffusion tensor imaging, electrophysiology, for example, EEG, intracranial recordings, and optogenetics, controlling neural activity with light, provide unprecedented insights into brain structure, function, and connectivity. Neuroplasticity research focuses on understanding the brain's ability to reorganize, adapt, and recover from injuries or neurological conditions, informing interventions for neurorehabilitation, learning enhancement, and cognitive enhancement. Neuroplasticity mechanisms include synaptic plasticity, structural remodeling, neurogenesis, and functional reorganization in response to environmental stimuli, experiences, and interventions. Neuroethics addresses ethical, legal, and social implications of neuroscience research and applications, including issues of privacy, cognitive enhancement, brain interventions, consciousness alteration, and brain-machine interfaces. Neuroethical considerations involve balancing scientific progress with ethical principles, respecting individual autonomy, and safeguarding against potential misuse of neurotechnologies. Brain-inspired artificial intelligence, AI, and computational neuroscience integrate principles from neural networks, machine learning, and cognitive modeling to develop intelligent systems that mimic brain functions, learn from data, and perform complex tasks. AI applications in neuroscience include neuroinformatics, brain simulation, brain-inspired robotics, and cognitive computing for understanding brain behavior relationships. Neurodiversity emphasizes the variability of neurological differences and individual differences in cognitive functioning, challenging stigmas associated with neurodevelopmental conditions, for example, autism, ADHD, and promoting inclusive approaches to education, employment, and societal integration. Neurodiversity advocates for recognizing diverse cognitive profiles, strengths-based perspectives, and accommodating neurodivergent individuals' needs. Precision neuroscience and personalized medicine aim to tailor interventions, treatments, and therapies based on individual neurobiological profiles, genetic factors, brain imaging data, and behavioral assessments. Precision medicine approaches in neuroscience include targeted drug therapies, neurofeedback interventions, and patient-specific treatment plans for neurological and psychiatric disorders. Interdisciplinary collaborations between neuroscience, psychology, computer science, engineering, philosophy, and other disciplines foster innovation, knowledge, exchange, and holistic approaches to understanding brain behavior relationships, cognitive processes, and mental health. Collaborative research initiatives address complex challenges, integrate diverse perspectives, and drive scientific progress in neuroscience and cognitive science. In summary, future directions in neuroscience encompass transformative technologies, interdisciplinary collaborations, ethical considerations, and innovative applications that advance our understanding of the brain, cognition, and human experience. Embracing these future trends in neuroscience enables us to unlock new frontiers in brain research, enhance cognitive capabilities, and address societal challenges. Neuroinformatics and big data analytics are shaping the future of neuroscience research by integrating large-scale datasets, computational models, machine learning algorithms, and data-driven approaches to understanding brain structure, function, and connectivity. Neuroinformatics platforms facilitate data sharing, collaboration, and meta-analyses across multiple research domains, enhancing reproducibility, transparency, and data-driven discoveries in neuroscience. Neuroprosthetics and brain-machine interfaces, BMIs, are advancing neurotechnology by developing implantable devices, neural implants, and neurostimulation techniques that restore sensory functions, motor control, and communication abilities for individuals with neurological disorders or disabilities. Neuroprosthetic technologies enable direct interaction between the brain and external devices, supporting motor rehabilitation, prosthetic limb control, and assistive technologies for daily living. Neurodegenerative disease research focuses on understanding the underlying mechanisms, biomarkers, genetic factors, and therapeutic interventions for neurodegenerative conditions such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, and Huntington's disease. Emerging therapies target protein aggregates, neuroinflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, and neuroprotective strategies to slow disease progression, enhance neuronal resilience, and promote brain health. Neuroplasticity-based interventions and cognitive training programs aim to harness the brain's adaptive capacity for learning, memory enhancement, and cognitive rehabilitation in individuals with neurological conditions, brain injuries, or age-related cognitive decline. Neurorehabilitation approaches include cognitive remediation, virtual reality training, neurofeedback techniques, and lifestyle interventions that promote brain plasticity, neural recovery, and functional improvement. Neuromodulation techniques such as transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, transcranial direct current stimulation, TDCS, deep brain stimulation, DBS, and optogenetics modulate neural activity, circuit dynamics, and neurotransmitter systems to treat psychiatric disorders, chronic pain, movement disorders, and neurological symptoms. Neuromodulation therapies target specific brain regions, neural networks, or neurotransmitter pathways to regulate mood, cognition, pain perception, and motor functions. Brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, for augmented cognition, brain-to-brain communication, and neurofeedback applications enable direct interaction between brain activity patterns, cognitive states, and external devices, enhancing cognitive performance, attentional control, and mental workload management. BCIs integrate neurofeedback signals, machine learning algorithms, and adaptive interfaces to enhance human-computer interaction, assistive technologies, and cognitive enhancement tools. Neuroimaging advancements, including high-resolution imaging techniques, functional connectivity analyses, diffusion imaging, and neurovascular coupling studies, provide detailed insights into brain structure, dynamics, and network organization across different cognitive states, developmental stages, and clinical populations. Neuroimaging innovations enhance spatial and temporal resolution, biomarker identification, and multimodal integration for comprehensive brain mapping and analysis. Neuroscience education and public outreach initiatives promote neuroscience literacy, scientific engagement, and ethical considerations among students, educators, policymakers, and the general public. Neuroscience communication efforts include educational resources, outreach programs, science museums, interactive exhibits, and public forums that raise awareness about brain research, brain health, and ethical implications of neuroscientific advancements. In summary, future directions in neuroscience encompass a wide range of innovative technologies, interdisciplinary collaborations, translational research initiatives, and societal impact efforts that advance our understanding of the brain, promote brain health, and address neurological challenges. Embracing these future trends in neuroscience leads to transformative discoveries, personalized interventions, and improved quality of life for individuals with neurological conditions. In conclusion, Future directions in neuroscience are characterized by transformative technologies, interdisciplinary collaborations, translational research, and societal impact initiatives that advance our understanding of the brain, promote brain health, and address neurological challenges. Key areas of focus include neuroinformatics, big data analytics, neuroprosthetics, brain-machine interfaces, BMIs, neurodegenerative disease research, neuroplasticity-based interventions, neuromodulation techniques, brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, advanced neuroimaging, neuroscience education, and public outreach. Neuroscience is poised to make significant strides in unraveling the complexities of brain structure, function, and connectivity, leading to insights into neurological disorders, cognitive processes, and neural mechanisms underlying behavior, cognition, and consciousness. Embracing these future trends in neuroscience enables us to unlock new frontiers in brain research, enhance cognitive capabilities, develop personalized interventions, and improve quality of life for individuals with neurological conditions. Thank you for spending time here at the World Wisdom Well and learning from Brain versus Mind. We hope you enjoyed this audiobook and use it to reference and refresh time and time again. Thank you for receiving our gift of the heart. Please share this resource with those who may benefit from it. May we all be happy. May we all be well. May we practice the wisdom which is born out of all topics which bridge, converge, and dance with one another.